What's happening, everyone? It's Vin here from No Nonsense Whiskey, ready for another Dram Slam live. We've got a great guest today, but as always, before we do that, we'll say hello to the chat, do my little intro, and get on with the stream. So here's a quick intro for you. There we go. Intro done. We've got a great guest today, as I said earlier, but we're doing it a little bit later than I kind of usually do because, as you'll probably know, if you're into the kind of YouTube sphere, Jesse's over in New Zealand, so he's a good, I think, 11 hours we figured out, but we'll talk to him about that. So it's early morning on Tuesday for him. So yeah, we've gone a live bit later to make that happen because it's got to be done, and I'm just glad that it kind of all fits out still because unlike Roy, I can't keep going late in the evening. Bless him. He's good at doing that sort of thing. But let's get into the chat and see who we've got and say hello to the people who turned up nice and early, and anyone else who pops in during as well. Say hello, and we'll get a good chat going. Eric, he was in nice and early. Thank you very much for coming in, my friend. Tim's in as well. Simon's reaching for his glass. Excellent. Yeah, I've got my glass down here as well. I'm not sure Jesse will have, but we'll catch him about that when he's on. We've got Jeff in. He's got his Carnmore Bunhaven 12 in. I'm covering that this week. That's going to be my review this week. That is a really good whiskey. It's not cheap, but it is what it is. Alan's in. Few, he says, made it, but don't worry, pal, because this will be on the replay as always. So again, if you're watching this on replay, make sure you hit like and comment and let us know how you like the stream. Finally, we've got Carsten. Good evening from Germany, watching regularly. Both of you guys, which is awesome. All right, you know me, I don't like to mess around. So without further ado, let's bring Jesse in and we'll say hello. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Vin, man, good to see you, dude. Yeah, I'm good. How about you, mate?
Yeah, doing well. I'm enjoying the live streams at the moment. I'm enjoying YouTube, which is interesting because, we'll talk about YouTube a bit later on because obviously unique opportunity where we get two YouTubers from a slightly different perspective to talk about it. But yeah, for me, big summer lull where people are drinking other stuff, but I guess that doesn't matter for you because you're just distilling everything. So it's not just whiskey. No,
it's been an interesting 6 months of YouTube for me. Bit of a lull on viewers from my side as well. We get into the YouTube stuff later on. I'm interested to hear your perspective on it. Actually, I don't get the chance to talk shop with many people stuck down here in little old New Zealand.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys are right out there as well. I mean, I talked to a few guys that are in your sort of area, and they always struggle with the time zone differences. And I guess the probably the slight benefit of being right out in New Zealand is that we can catch each other first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Whereas like some parts of Australia are obviously still asleep right now. So it's yeah. What was it for you now? About 8:30 in the morning, right?
Yeah, correct. 8:30. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice
So
and
the plan
bright.
was get the kids out the door and then scramble to get online. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about trying to get this thing set up, it made me laugh because I was like, sort of, we're trying to work out a good time to make it happen, and I just know exactly what would be going through my mind if someone said to me, "Can you get on live about 8:30?" And I was like, like just maybe. Yeah, so you've done well, man. I appreciate the effort for it as well because it's 9:30 is perfect for me in terms of like worldwide audience. So yeah, it's good that we can finally catch up again because it's been many years since we've had a good chat and seen each other in person. Like 4 years, I think we worked out at.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time, and like you said, it feels like the blink of an eye.
Yeah. I was trying to work it out. Like I went through your channel briefly to try and like pick some moments together, and I was trying to find the video that you made just after we met. We met at the Bastards Ball, by the way, over in Texas, which was epic. And I think at the time you must have had something like 10,000 subscribers, and that's just gone nuts.
I think it would be around there. Yeah, I find it hard to put the timeline together.
Yeah,
because everything's just merged into one. But yeah, I think that's probably about right. I think it was sort of 10 to 15 the first time I went to the ball. Yeah.
And that's crazy, man. That's crazy. I should say as well. I mean, so usually we do a bit of an introduction. I'm kind of assuming that everyone knows who you are, but just in case, just in case people don't, who are you, Jesse? It's still it.
Yeah, man. I make videos almost entirely on YouTube about home distillation. So New Zealand's we're very lucky down here because it's it's pretty much the only place where home distillation is completely legal. I know some states kind of have, in America, are a little bit more lenient on it, but it's federally illegal there still. Same for you, right? It's completely illegal.
Yeah, I was trying to explain to someone the other day about it. Like, someone was saying to me, like, "Oh, surely you could just buy a still." And I was like, "I'm pretty sure if I used any modern banking method to buy a still of any description whatsoever, I'd have someone knocking on my door. Like, maybe not straight away. Within 6 months, someone would come knocking to find out what I was doing with that."
Yeah, I don't. It's hard, man, because I always get questions about it, and people assume that I'm up to date on all the legalities everywhere. And in some ways, I've kind of not kept up to it on purpose because I don't want to be the guy saying, "Oh, you can do this," and then someone does do it, and then they get in trouble. It's hard enough just trying to figure out exactly what the letter of the law is in New Zealand, let alone in every other country. And I think probably the more poignant question is how enthusiastically law enforcement will enforce those laws in any given place. So I don't know, dude. But I am very glad that I don't have the stress hanging over my shoulders of, getting a knock on the door with someone with letters on the back of their shirt telling me that we have to have a serious conversation, which is the guy. I mean, that's why I started the channel, dude, is I realized that I had a giant competitive advantage over everyone elsewhere, because I can just do it openly and not stress about it. And it's cool to be kind of I take my responsibilities of following the laws in New Zealand quite seriously because I feel that I can be an example worldwide of how this can work responsibly.
Yeah.
And if I kind of skirt the legalities or push my boundaries too much, then it's sort of, I think that might hurt the chances elsewhere for other people to be able to have what we have in New Zealand. So it is restrictive. Technically, I'm only allowed to distill for my own personal use. Full stop, end of story. Can't give it away, can't trade it, can't share it. There's a little bit of wiggle room that is unofficial. I talked to the customs guys and they were happy for me to give samples to quote unquote experts to quote unquote see if it is as it should be, I think was the wording that they gave me. And I don't know whether that's because that's their general take on the law for everyone, or whether it was because they knew that I was doing it openly and publicly, and I just don't know. But it's worked well here in New Zealand for a long time, and I would love to see other people have the ability to do, to have that freedom as well, because it's a great hobby, man. It's an amazing hobby.
Yeah, I mean, like sort of living it vicariously through your channel. I mean, I would absolutely love to give it a go. And I'm often asked by people who sort of, maybe enjoy a dram but don't really know whiskey that well. Like, I think when I produced my own independent bottles, someone asked me if I'd made it, and it was like, well, that's a Dalmore 9-year-old, dude. No, I didn't make it. But yeah, it happens. People just don't know. People don't know. And there's so many laws around it as well. I mean, we over here, I try and skirt on, like you say, like the laws that affect me, and that's things like the sale of alcohol is obviously quite tightly regulated as well, and even things like the consumer laws. So, a great example: if someone sends me a bottle, I have to be completely transparent about that, so that it doesn't come across as like an advert. Otherwise, right. I can get like the CSA coming down on me, or whoever it is, consumer, whatever's. But because I am so transparent about it, it puts me sort of in a region of kind of vulnerability, let's say, versus the people that sort of don't say the truth necessarily.
Yeah, totally.
Which is really, it's a really interesting thing to have. I mean, it kind of makes it easy for us over here in terms of distilling, because it's just a blanket no. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. To be honest, it isn't a blanket no. Anyone can get a license to distill. However, it needs to be commercially viable to be able to be granted the license. So basically, you have to have a big distillery. You could never do it at home for yourself, because to be granted the license, you have to prove that it's actually a commercially viable product. So yeah, you've got to have a distillery basically then, and actually want to sell it. Because I did look at doing that, and it is very, very possible, very possible. But yeah,
it's
not in my garage.
Yeah, well, it's tough, isn't it, man? Because I know a lot of distilleries here in New Zealand that are commercially viable. There was one gin distillery that started out with a couple of T500s, which are the stock, for those that don't know. They're the stock standard, the one still that is available. It's available the widest around the world, and it's 30 liters. It's tiny, and they literally started a gin distillery with a couple of those. I can't imagine their economy of scale was great. But yeah, it's a tricky one, man. And starting a distillery is a rough thing. When COVID hit, I was working. I had another day job, and I was sort of in the position where I was starting to think about having a conversation with the boss and setting it like maybe a 4-year plan of slowly stepping back 1 day a week at the day job every year. And then COVID hit, and I lost my job. And for a long time there, we thought we were gonna think about opening a distillery. Excuse me. And I got 3/4 the way through I started a business plan. Like, I was taking it fairly seriously and pricing everything out, and I just couldn't make the numbers work, man. I just couldn't figure out how there was any way we were going to be able to pay the mortgage for years and years. So yeah, respect to the people that do it.
Yeah, 100%, man. And do you know what? It's the numbers for me as well. When I really looked at it, there's a friend of mine, actually, shout out to Spirit of Birmingham. He's literally bought an ice still and put it in his garage, and has turned it into what will hopefully be a viable product. When it comes through. Luckily, he's in a position where he's got a bunch of different businesses feeding in. But for me to make it happen where I am right now, I would literally have had to put my house up as collateral, and I was just like, I just can't do that. I can't do that to my family. I can't do that to my future, just in case. I think I could make it work, but you never know, right? So it just was straight away. I was just like, no, because the other option would be to get investors in, and then you every single pound you bring in, you're giving away a slice of your business, aren't you? So
yeah, not only that, you lose control of kind of the vision and the direction of the company, and obviously that can be viable depending on who it is that you let invest in your business, but it's a very large game of trust, right? To be able to anytime you have investors, you have to do what's right for them financially, and sometimes businesses need to make difficult decisions based on, we'll sacrifice our financial stability for the next 2 years, so we actually release this whiskey when it's ready, not because we need to pay the bills now, or whatever your strategy is, marketing strategy is. No, we're not going to do clear spirits. We're not going to do vodka and gin now because that's going to hurt our image in 2 years' time when we get the whiskey out. If you've got people that you need to pay in the interim, maybe you can't do that. So yeah, it's a tricky one, dude.
Yeah, man,
it's very tricky.
Now, you know what? So obviously, because we know each other a little bit, we got heavy real quick there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, no intro, no beating around the bush, just straight into it. I don't know what you wanted to talk about, but we didn't.
No, I was going to say, the funny thing is, usually I ask my guests, because it's very whiskey focused so far on these shows that I've been doing. Usually I ask people what their whiskey origin story is, but I kind of feel like that's a bit of a moot question to ask you, because whiskey is only really a small slice of what you're actually doing on the channel. So I'm going to sort of expand that out to like your kind of spirits origin story, because you must have enjoyed spirits before you started to make them.
So the story actually is heavily whiskey influenced. I started the channel before I distilled a drop of spirits, and the plan was to kind of document my learning process and then share that with other people. So I think what I do well is find information, hoover up information, and then repackage it in a way that's easier for people to digest than it was for me to find. Like that's kind of at the core what I think my job is. So I started the channel like that, and the reason I started the channel is there was a bunch of like personal reasons behind it, and I decided I wanted to start a YouTube channel before I just started it. I wanted it to be a distilling channel, and a big part of the decision to go distilling was the legality stuff that we talked about before. But another part of it was that I've always worked in a bunch of commercial kitchens. I've always enjoyed cooking. And the way that I enjoy cooking is just grab a bunch of ingredients and figure out what to make as I'm making it. So often I'll start cooking and people will say, "What's for dinner?" And I don't know. Like I've already started cooking, but the literal answer is I don't know, because I just love blending things, playing with flavors. And because of those backgrounds, the idea of making cocktails was super appealing to me. I love the idea of being able to do what I do with food, with spirits. But I was butt-ass broke. And every time you think about, oh, let's make a cocktail, the first step is you need these 6 ingredients. And I didn't have any on hand. And that was going to be $300, which I didn't have. So the initial thing that I thought I wanted to do with the channel was to make cocktail ingredients, essentially. And then I found the guys at the Whiskey Tribe and a few other channels, Ralphie. And then later on, when I met yourself and Roy and all of the crew, initially I found those people looking for YouTube inspiration. Unfortunately, I fell in love with whiskey. So I almost never make cocktails. I've very seldomly made things on the channel for the express purpose of having them as cocktail ingredients. And instead, my love has gone towards, I'd expand it to aged spirits. So anything that is maturated for a long period of time is kind of where my love is at the moment. And that was a complete blindside to me, dude. I didn't know that was coming. That wasn't the intention. That wasn't the plan. It just took over. And it was, in a funny way, it was for the same reasons that I thought I wanted to get into cocktails. It's just over, instead of playing with flavors on a bench in front of you before you drink it, it's playing with flavors over years and then blending before it goes into a bottle. Yeah, so I don't know, man. It's been a bit of a funny one, and I've been trying to convince myself to get back into the making ingredients for cocktails thing again, because it would be smart from YouTube purposes, right? To all the things that people know. Here's Campari. Like, I don't know. How do we make that? Let's try it. Cointreau. I did that a little while ago, and that video was quite successful. So it is something I need to do more of. And it's something I need to, I don't quite know how to say it, but once I convince myself to mess around with a cocktail, I still enjoy it. Like, I still love it. It's great fun. It's just so much easier to go grab a bottle of whiskey off the shelf. Yeah. I don't have a lot of time in my life for making cocktails, but it is something I want to get back to. So I guess because of that reason, and I guess to sum all of this up, I think I'm a little bit strange to a lot of people that just enjoy whiskey, but I think a lot of the people that like peeking through the back door, through the curtain, will probably understand this quite well. A lot of what I enjoy drinking and the real love in it for me is that I would more often rather reach for a bottle that is potentially not something that is delicious. It's something that's a little bit different, something that I don't know how it was made, or something where I know how it was made, but it's a process or an ingredient or a technique that I know I don't really understand. And maybe even it's something that is straight up not delicious, or I don't like it, but the act of drinking it will help me learn something. And that goes across the board. So I've recently fallen in love with absinthe. Alan Bishop from One Piece at a Time has been a huge influence on me for that. And originally I just thought, this is fun. This is different. It's a different history I don't know about. It's different techniques I don't know about. It's different botanicals I don't know about. And it turns out now that I've put my head in that rabbit warren, I've fallen head over heels for it as well. So a long answer to say yes, all of the things. I like all of the things, dude.
All of the things,
and I enjoy the variety and the giant gamut that's available in distilled spirits. It's literally endless.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? It's so I'm kind of this. I've pigeonholed myself as whiskey, but obviously I go with really anything that's kind of like grain based. There's some weird stuff. There's some weird stuff I've covered over the years, and every now and again I'll get a call saying, "Do you want to cover this cognac or something like that?" And okay, hell yeah, man. I'll whatever. Just I'll give it a go, and then I'll get comments saying, "Oh yeah, you should do some more cognacs." And I was like, I can't dedicate myself to another really expensive spirit.
Yeah, I feel you, dude.
It's like it's already horrendous. I mean, I've just put all of my bottles onto Whiskey Base, which took me a couple of days to do, and then it kind of like spat out a figure at the end what it thought my whiskey collection was worth, and I just did not need to see that number.
I could retire now.
Yeah, if only I'd kept any of it closed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I've gone into a period where I've probably only got in whiskey, if I had to guess, so just basically including single malt and bourbon, I've probably only got about 6 or 7 bottles at the moment. Which is strange for me, because even just a year ago I had a lot more. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just sort of we drank it.
Yeah.
I know where it disappeared.
It disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually a question I had for you, which is really interesting. Nice segue into that. But one of the questions I thought about, if I started like sort of distilling like you, so the closest thing I can link it to is when I started getting into barbecue in a big way. And I bought myself a mid-range. For me, it was about 500 quid, so it wasn't cheap. It was the kettle version of a Kamado Joe, so it's not full ceramic, but
Nice.
it's fancy. And then I bought a pellet smoker. So I've now got 2 grills, which is already weird that I've got 2 different grills. But now I've got to a point where I go to a restaurant that's renowned for barbecue, and I'm like judging it, and I'm going like I might not have been able to make it this good because obviously these guys are pro chefs. However, I could make it reasonably good for a very, very small amount of money in comparison to what I just paid for it. So yeah, long question, but the point is, since you started the channel, has your buying habits changed a lot? And now are you sort of uber critical of bought drinks, especially when they're really expensive?
That's a really interesting question, man. And for me, it was a bit of it's changed over time. And I think it's changed with, how do you put it? You don't know what you don't know, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And oh no, carry on.
No, so I was gonna say I'm an engineer in my day job, and that's what we say every day. You don't know what you don't know. Sorry, carry on, man.
No, that's all good. So when I first started, I was getting into distilling and whiskey at the same time. So I was a whiskey connoisseur, whatever you want to call it, noob, and I was a distilling noob and a YouTube noob. And there's in the home distilling forums and Facebook groups and all of that, there's one of the underlying currents or themes or stories that comes up a lot is all commercial distilleries are trash. All they want to do is make money. Because all they want to do is make money, they make products that are inherently flawed. And obviously I'm grossly generalizing here, but that kind of sentiment pops up a lot. And similar to your barbecue thing, right? It can be something that's infectious. You like to think that there's confirmation bias, like personal bias, the amount of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears you put into something. It's just a well-known psychological fact that people are going to appreciate that more based on what they put into it, not what it actually tastes like. So when I first started, I wasn't really, and I still think I'm not great at pulling apart a whiskey and really trying to assess it. So at the beginning, I didn't really know how to appreciate a great whiskey objectively, if that makes sense, right? Like, so I could taste it and go, yeah, that's yum. I like this. But I was finding it hard to really pull it apart and decide what it was. And at the same time, I just got this new hobby that I loved, and I was putting a whole lot of effort into it. And I thought what I was making was awesome. And then slowly you start learning more about what really makes a whiskey great. And you start experiencing more different whiskeys and growing your overall kind of understanding of the flavor gamut and what's possible and what's not, and what's special and different. You know, like, this is yum, I like it. But then you find out that actually this is really rare. Like, it's really hard to make this and no one else can do it quite the same. So that they kind of grew, and it got to the point where I realized that, yeah, I was making stuff that was okay for what it was, but that was looking through the lens of what was possible for me in comparison to what's just actually good. Kind of like going back to your thing, right? Of, oh yeah, this is okay, but it's still better than mine because they do it all day, every day, and they do one thing really well. So yeah, I guess where I've settled now is that aged spirits are really hard for a home distiller to make for two reasons. One is that you have to be damn patient, man. Like most people are saying, oh yeah, I made a great whiskey and I aged it for 2 months on oak chips. If you enjoy it, man, that's cool. Like the whole point of making your own spirits is to make it for you and make what you enjoy. And if you think that's good, awesome. But objectively, I'm going to tell you that I would back myself to pick your 2-month oak chip whiskey out in a blind taste testing. And for me, it's not going to be as enjoyable as something that's been done, quote unquote, the right way, the original way, the traditional way. So that's one side of it. It's just the patience and the volumes we're using on. It's hard to work with. There are things that are out there now, like the bad motivated barrel, that kind of help bring the ratio of liquid to oak back in line and age longer. The second thing is blending, dude. And you just can't compete with a warehouse full of thousands and thousands of barrels and a master blender whose only job it is to sample all those damn barrels, track them every day, and then essentially use them as ingredients, not as that they're not a finished product. They're an ingredient to put back together. It's very hard to compete with that. So of course you can get lucky and you can make a good single barrel, but that's not a given. It's never a given. If it was, like, why is blending a thing in the industry? And it's not because they just want to make more money. So on the aged spirits, it is you can make good product, and it's definitely made me more picky, but more picky to either drink something that's interesting, like what I was talking about before, and different, or more picky in that I know exactly what I want and I know how that was made. So I'm even more dialed into what it is exactly that I want and how it should be made to enjoy it. But I've also become more appreciative of really good whiskeys because now I know how freaking hard they are to make. So it's kind of gone like the answer to your question is yes, both.
Yeah, and it's funny. A couple of points you touched on there is really interesting because both me and you have spoken to ETOH in Denmark over our years. I've got one of their bottles sort of here. I can never get my mirror settings right. There we go. There.
Oh yeah,
the Arbide, and that's 9 days old in their sonic reactor. But last week I had Scott on from Tomatin, who sent me a sample of their 36-year-old, their latest 36-year-old, and exactly what you said there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that Arbide. It's real good quality whiskey. You know, if you want to, it's obviously not whiskey, but it's real good quality. But you put them two side by side, and I'm 100% I'm picking out the one that's been in a barrel for 3 decades, without a doubt. It's you can do as much as you can science wizardry, but you just can't compete with that process.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about it too, though, dude, is that the crew from ETOH are they straight up said to me, and obviously it was a long time I've talked to them. I'm sure they've gotten better. But they straight up said that they're coming at this from a scientific approach. That's their background. That's what they're good at. And they just happen to like whiskey. So imagine if there was a distillery that was doing everything the right way, the traditional way, and the blenders were scientists that just happened to enjoy whiskey. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you switched from a standard master blender to that person, their whiskey would get worse overnight. Like it would not be the same. And every time I see someone trying these new techniques, it's a very similar story. So I wonder if you had the guys from ETOH make 200 batches of what they're making, and then you had a master blender from Ardbeg, Tomatin, whatever, come in and do their magic on top of it, I would almost guarantee you overnight ETOH's whiskey would get better.
Yep.
So I still feel that we haven't quite seen what that process is capable of. Do you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
there's something to it, and I don't know how much there is to it because we haven't explored it yet as a the collective we. And
Yeah.
I don't know where that sits. I don't know how that falls. Obviously, there's people, and I'm generalizing and being a dick on purpose. Like I know there's people out there that are better at it than what I'm making out. But I just feel that maybe there's a little bit more to it than what we're really seeing. And maybe there's a case of, I know for me, experimenting with those kind of things, the best results I've had is instead of trying to make a great whiskey overnight, it's you run it through a similar process to what ETOH are using. And for those of you that don't know, it is ultrasonic waves, oxygen, a little bit of acid, and I think they were starting to use UV light as well when I talked to them. All of those things to try and mimic maturation a lot quicker. But I've had better results with doing that overnight and then maturating the whiskey for a year afterwards. And I haven't really done any A/B testing on this. I haven't really straight up tested it against each other, but I wonder if it's something that can be used as a jump start to maturation. So we're trying to imitate a 10-year whiskey in 5 years rather than a 36-year-old whiskey in 36 hours. I wonder if there's something there to it as well, but who knows, man? Who knows? It's just so hard to really test things that they're personal and they're not objective.
Yeah. 100%. And that's my daily challenge over here, is that I try to sort of come up my reviews from from a non-personal bias point of view, but obviously it's there, right? It's there for everybody. So that's kind of why I don't do tasting notes really. I do the overarching ones, but I don't go down deep because tasting notes are their basic chemical level memory that from a fired synapse years ago. Like when you're not going to know what an orange smells like if you never smelt an orange. So yeah, I try not to go into like the real deep specifics because of that, because I don't want it to be too much of me and just a bit of flavors that everyone's going to get, I think is what I try and do.
Yeah, I ran into that recently, dude. We've got there's a company here in New Zealand that's digging peat out of the ground in the South Island of New Zealand and then using that to smoke New Zealand grown barley. And it's similar to Scottish peat, but it's also different. Like it's peat. You drink it and you're like, okay, this is a peated whiskey. But to me, Scottish peat is kind of phenolic, that hospital fire thing. And then the earthy organic flavors are more herby, heathery, gorsey kind of things going on behind it. And I was trying to describe how that differs with New Zealand peat. And the only thing I just kept coming back to, it smells like walking through the New Zealand bush and you've got leaf litter, like that sweet kind of sweet leaf litter rot kind of flavor, which sounds horrible, but I'm in the company of whiskey snobs, so you all know what I mean.
We're all like, give me the rots,
yeah. But the only person that's going to understand that is someone that's either lives in New Zealand or has been to New Zealand and knows what that smell is like, because it's totally different everywhere else, right? And it makes sense. The peat's decaying organic matter that came from the plants that are native to the area that I'm talking about. And it's impossible. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, man. There's nothing else I've got. Never smelt Lynx Africa.
I mean, I'm going to say the only reason that Jeff has smelt this while drinking Wee Beastie is because, I mean, the flaming oil drum, yeah, but he must have been smothered himself in Lynx Africa while he was drinking
it. Jeff, I too was a teenager once.
I think he still might be.
I know what that smells like.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben Whiskey with Molly's asking about, well, he's basically saying about like the romance of whiskey, and I'm with him 100%. You know, like for me, from my point of view, my background, I'm really interested in the engineering and scientific point of view about what people are doing with aging, but 100%, it's never going to replace what whiskey is to people. never. Like if we were in a situation where whiskey suddenly become unsustainable to make, then yeah, I reckon something like that, like these guys that'd be more prevalent. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for the romance. I'm all for the stories.
That's a personal thing too, though, right? There's a lot of people out there that don't drink whiskey, or do, that would say the same thing about the way they're making it, right? I don't. The first thing that comes to mind is someone who's heavily into tech or science. They might say, well, this is more special to me because we've taken something that was a traditional kind of magical, mystical process, and we've recreated it in this way. And you can't say one is wrong and the other's right. I mean, I agree. I enjoy the romance. I enjoy the process. I enjoy the fact that the distiller that's working on large age statement whiskies is probably blending product that he didn't make, and he's distilling product that he'll never see. Like, that's beautiful to me. But it's only beautiful to me because that's the lens that I'm looking at it through, right? So for other people, why not? And I mean, I love messing around and trying anything in the distilled spirits specialty category coming out of America. I'm not sure what it's labeled as and called for you, dude. For that reason, right? Because I enjoy the other side as well. I enjoy people doing weird stuff.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. But I think you're right, dude. The history of whiskey and the romance of whiskey and the allure of whiskey as it is as a institute, religion, whatever you want to put on it, is heavily based on that. And there's always going to be people that love it. So you're right, dude. It's never going to go away unless, as you say, it's just completely, it's an archaic idea to think that we have to put this stuff in a barrel for 10 years to make it good. If something oak shortages or warehouse shortages, whatever, then it'll change. I don't think it's going away.
Yeah, like could you imagine if like the government's put like a tax levy on that increased exponentially for every year that it was in a warehouse? That would stop aged spirits pretty overnight. That wouldn't it? People would be they'd be bottling that stuff up. Yeah. So actually, I had a little schedule in mind for tonight, and
sorry,
no, it's all good because this is brilliant. Because considering the funny thing is, considering we're not like, I'm not drinking anything you've made. You're probably not drinking, I imagine, being early in the morning. I saw a can of something heavy for you there, but it's a monster.
Yeah, caffeine hit.
So yeah, I was expecting that I'd be talking about YouTube a bit earlier. So maybe we'll go onto YouTube if you're okay with that to talk about YouTube for a bit. Yeah,
whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, because like we said earlier, in a unique position to talk about kind of YouTube and how it's it's impacting my life. 100% changed yours, I imagine, by now. Because you're at what, like 360,000 subscribers now? Near enough. He doesn't even know. It's such a big number. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
But that's incredible, and that just goes to show the sort of accessibility that you have to this vast thing. And you've had some really successful videos, like your vodka video is sitting at, well, I think, just trying to pick up my memory now, about 5 million views, 4.8 million views, something like that, which is incredible.
Something like that, yeah.
And you talked a little bit about why you started, but I wanted to ask you is, like, your first videos, you started around roughly about the same time as me, about 7 years ago, right? 2016, something like that. But your videos right from the start had really great production values that's only just improved over time. So is this something that you've got experience with beforehand before you started making this?
I would argue whether those initial videos there's a part of me that wants to make those go away and delete them, and there's another part of me that's like, hell no, like I want the whole thing to be transparent and open. And it's a laugh to go back and look at those videos. So what I did have as a background was photography. So I understood composition, I understood lighting, What I didn't understand at all was video. And probably more importantly, what I didn't understand was how to be personable and act like a human in front of a camera in your garage by yourself. So that took a long time to work out, dude. And in some ways, I think the photography background was helpful in some ways, and in other ways, it was almost better if I hadn't had it. I think the reason that the production is sort of improved over time is that I set myself a goal really early on that every video I make has to be 1% better than the past videos in some way, shape, or form. So sometimes that's production quality. Sometimes it's packaging, like trying to improve thumbnails and titles. Sometimes it's strategy, you know, like what topic I'm covering. But there's always something that I'm trying to improve on. And honestly, dude, the other thing I think is that I just loved YouTube. Like, I was passionate about YouTube, and I didn't even realize it. But then when I started thinking about creating a YouTube channel, the thing that really got me thinking was anything I'd ever done that I've enjoyed as a hobby, every time I've wanted to learn something that I couldn't find through traditional means, it was always YouTube. So I had this giant kind of memory bank of what YouTube is supposed to look like, and a really big, and a how do I put it? When I first started, it was a knee-jerk reaction, right? You click on a video and go, "Oh God, what have I done? Get me out of here!" And I didn't know why, but you just feel that, right? So then it was a process of trying to organize my emotion around clicking on a video and going, "Oh, this guy knows what he's doing. I'll watch this one," versus, "Oh crap, this is going to suck. Get me out of here." So I guess you put those two things together, and it's just slowly built on. And it's all relative too, right? So now I'm looking at a bunch of videos that I think are really good, and hating on what I make because they're not that. And it's just constantly leveling up, right? there's the oh God, this is so amazing, I'll never make anything that good. And now I look back at some of those channels that I thought that about, and I'm like, oh, these guys are actually kind of crappy. But then there's something else that you're sort of striving for, like, oh, this is so good. It's so good. I want to be that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've kind of plateaued out for probably about a year and a half now. And there's things that I know I need to do. And it's just time and resources, man. Like, with time being the most important. And it's literally just me working on the videos. My wife's just quit her day job 6-8 weeks ago. So she's come on board full-time as well, as full-time as we can be with the kids.
Yeah.
And she's taken a lot off my plate, and she's doing a lot of stuff that I sucked at, to be honest. But that's all very much more in terms of communication and organization. So it'd be nice to have a team, dude. It'd be nice to bring some specialists in. Like, I'm totally self-taught in terms of editing. And it's fine. Like, I'm okay at it, but at the same time, comparatively, I suck at it. But I don't know, man. Like, if I bring someone in, then suddenly it's a job, and I've got to be a manager, and I can't just say, yeah, sure, let's do a podcast, and I'll just move everything back, because I've got to like fit around an employee's schedule as well. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. Because like literally none of this. I had nothing when I started this channel. No knowledge, no photography, no video making, no nothing. And I sort of learned throughout the years how to make it easy. I'm quite lazy. So accurately, I'm efficient. Not lazy. So I try to make it as easy and as streamlined as possible. But I've learned over the years that I actually really hate editing. And that's kind of like led me to where my content is now, which is as close to one shot as I can make it. So I try and get my head right and try and make minimal mistakes. And I obviously edit out mistakes eventually, but how to make them seamless that's been one of the real big challenges for me over the years. But like you said earlier, is just being an effective communicator. Because when I get passionate about something, and people tell me in the comments when I'm particularly passionate about a specific bottle, it's really noticeable because I go from this slow, methodical review to a you know, and I can't restrain that when I'm really passionate about something. So that's a real challenge for me. But yeah, like you said, this started for me exactly the same way. Like just a dude sitting in a room on his own with a camera and trying to remember that. I mean, at the time, 0 subscribers when I started, obviously, but it's you kind of hope that people will want to watch. Yeah. And then when people start, that's a really big, interesting thing, isn't it? Like when you start seeing actually people do want to watch, which is weird. Not that I compare mine with you at all. Like you're saying about comparison, what you're making, it like surpasses anything that I'm making drastically. But then comparison is the thief of joy, right? So I stick myself in my
it's just different too.
Yeah,
like we're in 2 very different things. Like I mean, I always tell people that it was, the hardest part of switching from being a full-time or from a part-time YouTuber to a full-time YouTuber is having to ask the question when you're sitting at a dinner table. So what do you do? and I can't just say, oh, I'm in photography and marketing anymore and like brush it off. It's like, I'm a YouTuber. And it like, how do I put it? It's not bad. It's just, it's, I don't know. I feel like a dick for saying it. And then it's really hard to describe to people what that means. They're like, oh, so you don't work. Like,
I work pretty hard. I mean, I remember years ago, a couple of years ago, when I started taking it seriously. I mean, I'm nowhere near making it viable to drop my day job, not even remotely. But I set myself up with trademarks and things like that to try and protect it a little bit. Got a business account to kind of work out my cash flow ins and outs, trying to keep it out of my personal accounts. And then I remember someone saying to me, "Goes, yeah, but you're not a business though, are you?" And I was like, I sort of am. I mean, a sole trader, I think we call it, but yeah, it's it sort of am. It doesn't feel like it, but it is technically speaking a second job.
Totally, man.
Which takes up a significant portion of my life.
I'm sure whoever the tax organization is for you, like for us, it's the IRD or IRS. I'm sure they consider it a job.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because it's like people have got the random laws and figures in their head. Like someone said to me that you don't pay tax on £1,000 of additional earnings to your income, and I was like, I don't know where you got that figure from, dude, because that is not true. And I was like, if it's over your tax threshold and you've got a day job that takes you over that tax threshold, they want 20% of that, no matter where it came from.
Man. Yeah. Have you found some interesting? So backstory here about must have been 8 months ago now. Was it 8? Or maybe even the year before. I don't know. It's unimportant. But the IRD, so our version of the IRS, which everyone knows what that is, basically put out a statement specifically for online creators. And the statement, in a nutshell, said, we don't know how the hell to deal with you guys because none of it makes any sense. The laws aren't structured to deal with it. These are the laws, and this is how we say they should be interpreted right now. But we get that it's messed up, and we'll be making new laws soon. And that was pretty much the way it worked with everything I dealt with. So I did there's like the Centre for Economic Development here in New Zealand, and they try and stimulate economic growth in the local area and help out with whatever, mentors and so on and so forth. And I signed up for that to see how we could work together. And the discussion I had with them was crazy because they had no idea how it worked, like no idea how the business could operate, which I don't hold against them. That's fine if they haven't run into it before. But one of the things was there was a certain standard, like you had to be an exporter. If you're an exporter, you got whatever, like other things opened up to you. And I said, well, I am an exporter. And they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, sure I am. Like, you're not an exporter. Like, what are you sending overseas? Like, videos. I'm like, that doesn't count. Like, I'm providing a service, and all my money pretty much comes from overseas into New Zealand. And they weren't like rude about it, but it took them a while to realize. And then when they did realize, they're like, oh wow, yeah, you're right. That actually is what you are. And I'd never thought about that either. I never thought of myself as a quote unquote exporter. That's bizarre. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a weird job, and it's a weird time for it right now because there's a giant industry that's built up around it. It's now an established profession, I guess you call it. There's entire departments of everything. Like there's YouTube specific lawyers and accountants and all that jazz. There's people that make a living out of making thumbnails. There's people that make living out of being an editor. So it's kind of grown up and graduated in that way. But then in other ways, it's so foreign and no one knows what basket to put you in or like how to deal with you. I don't know, man. It's an interesting one. It's going to be interesting to see how it changes over the next year, 5-10 years. And
it's changing all the time as well. I mean, I don't keep up with YouTube policy as much as I should do because it affects me so keenly. But you like me get the email every month and they're saying click this link to see our latest updates, and I very often ignore it. But I always say my favorite example is the tobacco crowd. Who when I first started doing whiskey, there was a tobacco crowd doing YouTube videos, and overnight they made a policy change that said you can't monetize anything that's got tobacco in it anymore, and that whole thing died. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen to alcohol because it's so heavily ingrained in culture and taxable across the world. So I don't think that
but so was tobacco, man.
Yeah,
so was tobacco. Like, I don't think it's going to happen overnight. But the writing was on the wall for tobacco, right? In terms of, they were like, I don't know what it's like for you, but for us, they're trying to make New Zealand smoke free, like in whatever 4 years or something. You just literally cannot buy cigarettes anymore. So the writing was kind of on the wall. It went from being something evil that people partook in and it was their own choice to no, it's just evil, but we'll take your tax money for it, to no, it's actually so evil that we should even stop that. And who knows, man, like maybe we go through another Puritan sort of uprising and alcohol goes the same way. And that is something that runs through my mind a lot, is that at the moment, if YouTube changed things, luckily I have other revenue streams. So we've got the retail store, we've got the Patreon platform, and direct sponsorship would probably be the biggest three. So we're probably in a position to kind of weather the storm for a little while. But I'm also very aware that if they just cut monetization, that would put us in a precarious situation. And even worse if they decided to, whatever you want to call it, shadow ban, not publish, like not allow you to publish alcohol content. I'd be completely screwed at the moment because all of my interaction with the viewers or the community is through YouTube, right? So the midterm goal for us at the moment is to get to a point, if that happens, we don't lose it all. Like we managed to build up enough of a business that isn't through YouTube, that we can still have something. Maybe I've got to get a job, but I don't lose everything I've done on YouTube,
Yeah.
And that's quite fatalistic, but
man, you got to have plans, right? You got to have plans.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why I trademarked years ago. Is because another brand came out. Shout out to No Nonsense Spirits in the UK who are making gins, and I was like, that's a bit too close for my liking. Because if they went out their way to make a whiskey and trademarked it before I had, I could be told to you can't use that name anymore, and that's the brand, right? So it's
totally.
Yeah, and you've got to, you got to think about stuff like that. You can't just go through life like everything's going to be as it is right now today or better.
Oh man, that would suck if it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah, that's change makes things interesting. It also makes it scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm stressed about it. It's just it's a nice how do I put it? It's a nice thing to create action, right? Like if I wasn't thinking about that and I wasn't worried about it, we never would have got the retail store, the e-commerce store off the ground. And it's not like that's a huge part of our revenue right now. It's not big. But the hardest part, and well, for me anyway, the hardest part of anything like that is just starting. Like now it's relatively easy for us to find a new product and get it in the store. Or to send out another email or to advertise a product in a video, compared to, oh crap, we should start a store. Like that's a big problem to solve. Yeah, so having some sort of pressure from the outside is nice in some ways, and that's one of the ones for me.
No, that's fair. Going back to what you said earlier about sort of plateauing, which is something really, because I had a daughter sort of 3 years ago, and I know you've got yourself a family as well. But I've only really felt like this year, in the last few months, I've had any kind of energy, headspace to progress the channel. I did my videos every week. I did my videos, but it was really a churn, and it was getting the energy now. Now you said you're sort of plateauing. What do you think sort of the outlook for your channel is now going forward? Have you got plans going forward to do a shift, or are you still sort of, getting the content out, so to speak?
Yeah. So there's kind of two things that are really related to each other. I've noticed myself personally am prone to this, and being a YouTuber makes it so much worse. But basically, I'm really prone to going through cycles of being super excited about putting a whole lot more work in, and then just being, I wouldn't call it burnout, but the opposite of that, So I've tried to set myself a goal of, whenever I'm on a downswing and I'm just not feeling it, there's a bare minimum that I have to do. It doesn't matter how shitty I feel. It doesn't matter how down in the dumps I am about it. I have to make those weekly videos. And I have to do like the Q&As for the Patreons, for example. That's it. And it took me a long time to realize that that was actually the most effective way to get back to the upswing. Like I was trying to, I don't want to do this, but I have to, and kind of churning around. It's like, dude, I own my own business. I can give myself the right to take my foot off the gas a little bit, but I'm not allowed to go backwards, right? Like that's the line in the sand. And then the flip side of that is when I come back to feeling excited and I have more energy and I have more resource, more bandwidth to do something. Instead of just saying, I'm going to make 3 videos this week and they're going to be awesome. Instead of doing that, I have to put at least 50% of that extra energy into making something that is going to matter in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years time. So it's trying to, I guess still it is never going to be Mr. Beast. Like there's just such a narrow part of the world's population that give a flying fornication about what I do. It's always going to be a niche within a niche, right? So instead of trying to conquer the world through videos, I have to admit to myself that I'm going to reach a plateau on YouTube at some point in time. Is it 20,000 views a video? Is it 100,000 views a video? I don't know. But what I need to start doing is sort of looking, like I said, outside of the platform itself and building other things that help us pay the mortgage, of course, but also serve the community and what the community wants and doesn't have. So when I get on that upswing and I have more energy, it's about trying to do something that at least lays ground foundation to build on later on, and something that is a long-term goal, not a short-term goal. So that's kind of what I'm working on the moment. And we've also sort of decided that it's probably smart to pick one thing at a time to be working on as as a mid to long-term goal. Because we've got a book of about 15 things that we'd love to be doing right now.
Yeah.
That we just don't have enough of, So let's build one at a time, and so build something new, test it. Does it work? Yes. Awesome. Now we've got to figure out how to keep that going through the downswing times, like how to automate it, how to make it easy to maintain. And then we've got to figure out how to defend it to make sure that we're actually good at what we do, that we're actually providing value, and that someone can't steal the idea. And then once we get to that point in time, then we can move on to the next project and focus on something else. And that goes for everything, dude. Like, so there's a bunch of things I'd love to do in terms of set building, like creating a better space to work in, to make it more efficient for the videos, and also to just look better, to create more. What I don't have, which is crazy in the whiskey world, is something like your background, right? I don't have somewhere to stand in front of and taste that has cool shit behind me. I don't have that. So that's something on the list that would count as doing something for the future, and trying to raise that would be a specific thing that I could do to raise the production quality of the videos specifically.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. That's exactly it. It's exactly it. It's pretty cool as well, because I've just seen a couple of people in the chats that that hadn't caught on to you before, so that's at least something. So Jeff said much earlier, that he's going to be planning on binging your videos, which do it. And sort of coming around, sort of we've gone past the hour. Every time I do this, I blow straight past the hour. But to sort of end on a more of a light-hearted question. Now, one of my favorite playlists of yours, which is probably this is a bit of a basic thing to say, because one of my favorite playlists is your memes, your meme distills ones, where you basically, I mean, obviously you just decide to just do some stupid shit every now and again and distill some random stuff. So my question is a bit of a two-parter. What is your, you could say weirdest or favorite, but what's the weirdest thing you've distilled that did work, and the weirdest thing you distilled that didn't?
Good question.
I mean, you could say favorite if you don't like weirdest, but
no, it's fine. So the quick background for those that haven't seen it, Meme Spirits is I generally take already made spirit off the shelf, throw it into a still, and put something weird that isn't normally distilled into the pot and redistill it to see what happens. It's there for a little bit of comic relief. Like, dude, we don't have to take this shit seriously all the time. We can just have some fun. It's good for views sometimes. Sometimes it just blows up and it does really well because it's more accessible to a wider crowd. But interestingly enough, it's actually really good as a learning technique as well, because different flavors come out at different parts of distillations. Distillation sometimes highlights a flavor or intensifies a flavor that you almost didn't know was in the wash. And sometimes the wash tastes, it's like a sledgehammer of whatever in terms of flavor, and you distill it and none of that flavor comes through. So it's a good learning opportunity for me as a distiller to put weird ass flavors into the still and see what happens when they come out. So to answer your question, the most successful, you know what, actually, dude, the most successful and the least successful were probably the same thing. I did, it may have been the first time Erin ran a still. We got her to we did Easter eggs for Easter. And we both chose different Easter eggs and had like a wee competition between ourselves. And I chose marshmallow eggs. And I thought that the marshmallow was going to come through really strong. I thought it was going to make the spirit like really soft and approachable and marshmallowy and vanilla-y. And none of those things happened. Like almost no flavor from the marshmallow came through whatsoever. Erin did cream eggs though, and that worked really well. That was quite delicious. In terms of straight up worst thing I've ever made, it actually wasn't Meme Spirits, although it was close. I'm working on a seaweed gin at the moment. And we've got, actually I've got some here. We got some, the first time I did it, I just used nori, like sushi sheets. but I wanted to use a New Zealand product, and there's a company here that collects New Zealand wakame and New Zealand giant kelp. So I figured I'd do a distillation of just each of these ingredients to try and compare to each other. And one of them, I don't know if you've ever seen a seal colony. Have you ever been to a seal colony?
Not personally, but through the YouTubes.
Has anyone in the comments been to a seal colony and smelt what that is like? Because it tasted and smelt just like that. And it was feral. Imagine like bad fish and like sweaty meat mixed together. It was, truly terrible. So not meme spirits, but probably the worst smelling and tasting thing I've ever made. But I think I can make it work in the gin still.
Well, I mean, I'll be watching that, and I'm going to give a quick shout out in the chat to a video you made recently, distilling Doritos with iron root, which is truly remarkable YouTubing. It was brilliant. I love that video, so I'm just going to chuck that in there.
To be fair, that was actually that. Yeah, if we classify that as meme spirits, that may actually that was better than the objectively. It was a better spirit than the Easter eggs. Yeah, I'll I'll change my answer based on that.
I mean, that's kind of all my questions, but I've got one in the comments. So if you've got some time,
shoot, man.
If anyone else has got any questions, chuck them out. But Prestige Liquid, which is Andrew, is asking if you've heard of Belgrave Distillery from Oz. Not one that I'm familiar with, but
I'm going to distill it. Type and think at the same time. Google it, simply because I am terrible with names and really good with labels. So let me see the label. No, I have not come across this before.
No, I certainly haven't. I'm actually drinking an Australian. It's the closest thing I've got to you. I'm drinking a lime burners at the moment. But,
cool.
Yeah. There you go. That's one for your list.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for putting that on my radar. I'll have to check it out. So I, as a Kiwi and a YouTuber, I have failed because I've done more. Excuse me. There's that monster coming back to get me. I've failed to interact with and collaborate with New Zealand and Australian distilleries as much as I have with even just, like just Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to do more of that, dude. And it's nice to see. Have more places like Belgrave on my radar as potential people to reach out to and perhaps do a podcast or a video with. So thanks, man.
No, it's all good, and all good for Andrew as well. But I know exactly what you mean, man. It's I was given some really some bad, well, not bad advice. It was sage advice in if you take it in the wrong way. But early on, I saw some advice on YouTube, like what you were saying earlier. I spent a lot of my first year of YouTubing just watching how to YouTube videos. You know, like nailing SEO and nailing video production and things like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things this guy said was like, don't consume any content whatsoever from your own niche. You know, create and don't watch. And I took it to heart a bit too much. And the first couple of years, I just didn't engage with anyone else in the whiskey community, YouTube wise. And it was such a bad call because actually none of us are competing really. I mean, I know we're competing for eyeballs ultimately, but really we're all growing together. What's good for one of us is good for everybody. And especially like stuff like this, if we can collaborate, whatever, you know, YouTube creates this little synapse fires to show it's all coming together. And it really was a mistake. And now I'm loving coming back into it again now and really interacting with people. But I'm guilty of that. Like I'll sit there and wait for my inbox to ping rather than pinging everyone else's inbox.
Right.
Because I don't want to be that guy who's like, hi, I'm here over here. So yeah,
I think the English culture is kind of similar to the New Zealand on that front, where I'm the same. I don't want to be the guy that's pushing that kind of stuff, and I love doing it, man. Like this, like how could you possibly call this work? You know, like the only hard part of this is figuring out when and where to turn up and actually getting your bum in the seat, and then it's just fun. It's just awesome fun. It's like getting to talk to someone like you for an hour or 3 hours is amazing, and hanging out with the people in the comments that are all awesome people as well. That's awesome. And you're right, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not me versus anyone else. I've had people accuse me of not reaching out to people or not doing stuff with people because I want to monopolize the market. So, no, dude, not at all. Like, the best thing that could possibly happen to me is a distilling creator moves in next door and has 1 million followers, and he's my neighbor. Like, that is the best thing that could happen to me. That would be awesome for me, not horrible for me. And it's pretty unique to YouTube in terms of, like, what other business is super stoked to have quote unquote competition kicking their ass right next door to them, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. That is very cool. And I love New Zealand. I love living here. There's so many things about it that are awesome. It's the one thing that really weighs on me a lot is that I can't find other YouTubers to hang out with.
Yeah.
Unless I want to, it's like gaming or makeup. And one of those things I'm into. I'll let you pontificate which.
I was going to say, your makeup looks great, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Yeah. No, it's awesome. And I mean, I would have loved to get back to the Bastards Ball again this year. I know they're not doing the YouTube thing officially, but of course there'll be people around. Yeah, and it's pretty awesome to do that. But yeah, to circle back around, I need to get better at hanging out with New Zealand and Australian distilleries more. Actually, on that topic, on Wednesday in 2 days' time, I'm going over to Wanganui to hang out with a distillery who all they do is make vodka from waste streams. So
amazing.
Chocolate cakes. They made a chocolate cake vodka because they found 100 chocolate cakes that were going to get thrown out, or they collect all the bread up from the bakeries that's going to go to waste and make vodka out of that. And this time they got given, I think it was 5 pallets of Belgian beer that was imported for reasons and then is now out of date. So dude's just been opening beer bottles for like a week. He's got to go and distill it.
I mean, why not?
Yeah, so,
right? It's an incredible thing. Like, I mean, the fact that we can do all this stuff is amazing. And it's like what you said before about jobs being weird jobs now. One of the words I really hate, but it technically is true, is influencer. And the fact that that's even a job title. I mean, it's funny because it's a word. I get it. Yeah, exactly. I get it, because technically speaking, I have said this bottle is good and someone has bought it. Therefore, I have influenced their decision to buy. So technically, I get it as a definition. But I think it's the negative association with some of the real douchebags on the internet that actually do call themselves it. Like you said, for makeup and whatever. I don't want to pick on makeup. That's not fair specifically. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like the actual influencer. Yeah. But it's
the name to me means that your job, your reason for existing on the internet, is to make people part with their money. Right? Like it's like the new car salesman is the way I think of it. Like slimy car salesman. And that's not what I want to do at all. Like, yeah, sure, part of my job is to influence people. Cool, but it's more about entertaining people and educating people and creating a community. Like, so I'm totally on board with it, dude. I get that it's a thing that people use. If people, like, as soon as I see someone put influencer as their job description on LinkedIn or on a business card, I apologize, but you have been pigeonholed. I have an idea of who you might be, and I would rather not collaborate with you. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just saying I agree.
No, bang on, mate, bang on. But yeah, I think that's good. That's like I say, all my questions. Nobody else has chucked any more out. quick shout out to Whiskey Dictionary who's just popped in. So cheers, dude.
Hey, the Whiskey Dick.
Yeah, man. We were all there together at Bastards Ball that time. It was cool to catch up with people, and I hope one day we're gonna. For me, it's a good excuse. It's not the be all and end all of whiskey, but it's a good excuse to get people together in one place. So
Indeed,
next
man.
year, I'm earmarking it. I'm saving a week's holiday. I'm going to save up for flights. I'm going to make it happen. But yeah, he says that now.
The other thing for me, dude, is that there's a giant world of cool creators and cool distilleries out there. So on one hand, it's a great like seed for action for me to get out of my house, go to America, spend whatever, like 3 or 4 days in Austin and Texas, and then go somewhere else and go do some cool stuff with other distilleries. And I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for the Bastards Ball. On the flip side, I'd love to get to your part of the world. Like, I'd love to go and do Europe, Ireland, Scotland, and find a bunch of cool people doing cool shit that I can collaborate with there, you know? So it's kind of competition to that as well. Yeah, it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one.
Let's make it happen one day. We'll get a YouTube contingent up in Scotland, man, and we'll go for a little trek around for a couple of weeks.
That'd be awesome, dude. Yeah, I'd be totally down for that. I'd love to do that. Like that's we have that as officially a goal for us. We did the 23andMe thing a little while ago, and it turns out that Erin and I are basically all Irish, and so our daughter has completely adopted it. She has decided that she is in fact Irish, and she's like, all she wants to do is watch documentaries about Ireland. She's doing Irish dancing, and she is pestering us relentlessly to get to Ireland. So another midterm goal is to somehow swing a business trip to Ireland where the kids need to come along as well.
Oh yeah, when you just chuck it on the business account, right? That's what I do these days. But yeah, flights, all that, all good.
Yeah, man.
Well, nice one, man. I really appreciate you coming on and giving up your morning. Hopefully you've got a good day ahead of yourself, but I think I'm going to hit the I'm going to oh, something's caught me then. Excuse me. I'm going to get to bed soon after this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for joining me tonight, Matt. It was really good to talk to you again. And we'll have to do this again sometime for sure. Like you said, I could have talked to you for 3 hours easy, but you know, my day job calls tomorrow.
Yeah, fair, man. I get you. Dude, thanks for having me, man. This was awesome. It was great to catch up again. It's kind of sad that it took this for us to catch up. So yeah, it happens. Let's keep in touch.
Definitely, man. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks everyone for watching. It's been really good to have a good little chat in the comments. Hopefully you've enjoyed it tonight. This is a totally new perspective to what I've been talking about so far, because we've been having brand ambassadors and whatnot. So to go straight from that to like sort of craft distilling, home distilling, yeah, it's awesome. But no, thank you everybody. And we'll cut the stream. But yeah, thanks Jesse. I'll catch you again soon. Cheers everybody.
It's been awesome. Cheers everyone. See ya.